Hello everyone, welcome back. This is S.C. Coleman, author, and in this video we're going to talk a little bit about data centers, and this is going to pertain to something called Azrieli Group Ltd. Now, a couple things. First, if you look up here in the top right, you see their logo. Same on most of these pages. It is an A and a G, stylistically designed within a box. Now there's couple things to point out here. First of all, that looks very similar to the Masonic Freemason symbol of the G with the wedge measurement thing. There's a couple things that match up to that as well, as far as the Masonic practice and rites and what their overall purpose and plan is, and the fact that they're not actually Masons in the context of builders. It's more like delusions of grandeur under a false pretense or false image. Now there's another thing about this, which is that it looks a lot like a camera lens. Now you have a camera lens obviously on the recording device I'm using right now, but you also have camera lenses on LVT cameras, flock cameras, all these cameras that they're positioning around, and of course also the cameras used by so-called journalists or the quote-unquote press, right? Which of course is the premise to the movie Civil War. Except in the Civil War they have the false presentation of individuals going around and taking pictures, when in actuality they would be automated camera systems doing it in order to document an instigated civil war. And the same will go with the data centers and the processing of all that information, so that they can monitor the effects and outcomes of the environment, which they would say that they create the circumstances with which the events unfold, but they're not responsible, right? Because it's what they always try to do is shift responsibility. So in that movie, there's some things that become very obvious. First of all, Texas and California are important components, so let's look further into that. So the first page we're going to look at here, if you'll bear with me a minute. The company was incorporated in January 6, 1983 in Israel. June 3rd, 2010, the company went public. As of the report date, Sharon Azrieli, Naomi Azrieli, and Dana Azrieli are the controlling parties of the company. Those people may or may not exist. As the report date, the group is engaged primarily in various real estate segments: senior housing, data centers, holdings in GM, income producing, the property overseas segment, mainly in the U.S. Rental housing, has minority holdings in Bank Leumi LE Israel Ltd. Bank Leumi. Discontinued its e-commerce operations in Azrieli.com. Azrieli Group, which was founded by Mr. David Azrieli OBM, is a leading real estate group in Israel. In July 2014, Ms. Dana Azrieli was appointed as active chairman of the company's board of directors after many years in which she served in key positions in the group. The operations of the group are carried out by means of a managerial headquarters that is comprised of professionals having a great deal of seniority and managerial experience. The company's CEO is a Mr. Eyal Henkin. Now, what's interesting in the breakdown is we have some names. We've got the AG San Clemente 3700 LLC, 2 Aspen LLC, AG Sandbridge. All of these names sound like front corporations or companies, sort of like Sandline International. You have the South Post Oak General Incorporated, South Post Oak Holdings LP, Rivercan GP LLC, and Rivercan LP. You also have the Palace America Senior Housing Ltd, the Global Data AZ Ltd, Green Mountain AS, and Green Data AS. So those are some names I think are interesting. Next, we have GM Properties, the English companies, 3 Riverway, Houston, Texas, 1 Riverway, Houston, Texas, Southern House 529 York Road, Leeds, England, 3 Gallery Office Building, Houston, Texas, Plaza at Enclave, Houston, Texas, 8 West Center, Houston, Texas, Aspen Lake 2, Austin, Texas, Sandbridge Land, Houston, Texas, Land Reserve, and 3,700 San Clemente, Austin, Texas. So there's obviously something going on there with 3,700 San Clemente. Now, the interesting thing to note here is that a lot of the tracking systems that I've researched go back to England. So I would suspect that much of what is done is funneled through England to these operations in Israel, and possibly are then carried somewhere else. I've always believed that the center of control has been European, and I could be wrong. That's always possible. I would never say that I'm always right all the time, because that would be impossible. Nobody can be right all the time, and you can be partially right on something, but either way, that's neither here nor there. Looks like I skipped a page here, possibly. Here we are. On 23rd June 2022, the company, through a wholly owned special purpose subsidiary thereof, in this section the buyer, entered into an agreement with an English company, in this section the seller, for the acquisition of all the seller's holdings in 2 companies, in this section the transaction, a company that leases from a third party land on which an active data center is built in East London, and another company that owns vacant land which is adjacent to the active data center, in consideration for approximately £52 million, approximately NIS 220 million. According to the representative GBP rate as of the date of signing of the agreement, the English company's December 19, 2022 saw a receipt of approval from the competent regulator in England for the transaction, and January 23, 2023 saw fulfillment of all the conditions precedent and the closing of the transaction. On March 7, 2023, GM, through a company wholly owned thereby, entered into a service agreement with TikTok Norway AS, a Norwegian company which is part of a group of companies with global operations, for the provision of data centers on a campus to be built by GM in Norway. That's probably not General Motors, but at this point, who knows? On 30th of March 2023, GM engaged through a company indirectly owned thereby in a joint venture with a German company engaged in the provision of electricity and energy, KMW, and together with GM in this section, the parties to build a data center campus comprised of a number of buildings in the Frankfurt area in Germany. In this section of the agreement, the JV shall be equally held and financed by the parties. According to the agreement, GM will provide various services to the JV, such as project management, marketing, and sales services. KMW will supply the power capacity required for the operation of the campus. Work on the construction of the first building have begun in the report period. And of course, they're doing all the similar types of activities in the United States, but under litany of different front companies and organizations, so it's very hard to trace directly back to these overseas interests. On the 21st of December 2023, the company released an immediate report, incidentally to consideration of the possibility of raising bonds on negotiations conducted by GM with a leading international tech company. In this section, the customer, and together with GM, the parties, to engage in an agreement for the provision of data center services to the customer at a scope of approximately 102 megawatts, in a campus to be built by GM in Norway. And data center segment, the company holds indirectly 100% of the issued and paid up share capital of GM, which operates in the data center segment in Norway, and all of the share capital 100% of 2 companies operating in data center segment in England. For further details regarding the acquisition of the English company, see section 1.3.2 or blah blah blah. And moving on. One moment. Okay, here we go. The company's business in the U.S. is primarily affected by the economic situation in the U.S. market in general and the income-producing commercial real estate for offices. Who cares? For details regarding the Houston, Texas area, which is, as of the report date, the location of most of the company's operations in the income-producing property in the U.S. segment. And that's, of course, going to be your direct connection, because I'm sure there's many more indirect connections which would require further research and analysis. Since 2001, the group has also been operating overseas, in particular in the U.S., mostly in the leasable office space segment, and since 2014, the group has also been developed its senior housing segment. In June or July 2019, the company began operating the data center segment through investment in and or acquisition of companies that operate the segment. Upon examination of the location of a potential property, the company ascribed significant weight to the population growth potential in the examined area and the urban development anticipated therein. On urban research, segmentation of the population, competition in the area, and unique or typical commercial needs of such area. 2019, the company entered the data center segment through its investment in Compass. Boy, you see a lot of compass symbols popping up around the United States recently. Now, what's interesting about this is that it all appears to pertain to the overall plan and motivations of so-called secret societies, being the Freemasons and whatnot. But really, those are all just they're just comprised of people who are useful idiots. They will go around and establish essentially their own downfall off the promise of being future captains of industry or generals of armies or things like that. But in reality, most of this stuff is decreed from afar by individuals who think they're just above it all. Solar Edge Campus. January 17, 2022 saw the closing of a transaction for the acquisition of a company that holds leasehold rights in land located in the North Globalist site, on which the company will build a campus for Solar Edge Technologies, Ltd. Solar Edge. That sounds like solar panels, doesn't it? Or solar farming. Which campus will comprise 38,000 square meters of above-ground areas and 950 parking spaces. The company entered into an agreement with Solar Edge for the lease of the campus for a 15-year term with extension options for up to a total period of 24 years and 11 months. From the date of handover of possession of the campus, Solar Edge will be responsible for the campus's management and maintenance. June 2022 saw the receipt of a shoring and excavation permit, and work has begun. Blah, blah, blah. All that nonsense. And jump to page 68. And next we have this little tidbit. Unlike the group's office properties in Israel, the group's office space in the U.S. is managed by external local management companies. So, of course, the name of this entity won't be on any of the stuff. So you won't know it goes back to them, which is how they like it. Who act professionally, with which the group has engaged in agreements in which the group is entitled to terminate by advance notice of 30 days. The management companies collect from the tenants the rent as well as current expenses such as security, cleaning, maintenance, municipal taxes, insurance, guarding, maintenance of elevators, and other mechanical systems. The company is examining in a current manner possibilities for both operational and property management streamlining. As usual, all of this stuff is hidden under a cloud of gobbledygook, or rather, coded language. Outside Israel, the group's operations in the U.S. and England are subject to the laws and regulations in said countries, and inter alia. Boy, they love using this word a lot, inter alia. In the field of land planning and building and lease, the environmental laws at the municipal level in connection with land taxation. And so basically, what they're sort of hinting at is that part of their ability to control things is based off of the control through land taxes, and if the land taxes go away, essentially they lose their ability to control their so-called assets, and of course it will impact their overall plans. They're never going to directly say something. Well, they may actually directly say that, but they'll do it in a hidden manner. Data center operations are characterized by high requirements in the following areas: security, both physical and of computing and server systems; environmental requirements from the various systems used by the building, such as cooling systems, generators, fuel storage for the generators, etc. Very high power redundancy requirements; prevention of general failure in the event that one of the system component fails; the communication control and safety systems. Every development project in the field is subject to regulation and provisions prescribed by the relevant authorities. As usual, they're word games. The receipt of operation permits and licenses from various regulatory bodies according to the area where their operations take place. GM's operations in Norway are subject to the provisions of the Norwegian Security Act. This law is a comprehensive legal blah blah blah. I don't really care about all their nonsense. What I want to know are the operational plans, the particular functions of that, and of course, who is actually involved. Who are the names? What are they doing? I don't really care about the menial, moronic debates that really have no end to them and aren't going to go anywhere, because really this stuff isn't up for debate. It simply is, right? And you have to recognize it like that. It's all about operational activities and getting the job done. Sometimes you have to engage in the debate format, but individuals that are behind things like this would prefer to avoid, and if they can't avoid, silence and eliminate any type of alternative perspective or conversation. To address cyber risks, the group uses the services of a CISO, who is an external consultant with expertise in information security and who is familiar with the group's systems and infrastructures. The CISO works in collaboration with the group's chief information officer for planning and implementation of required defenses and technologies in the area of information security and protection of the company's databases. That sounds like their security forces front organization, which will probably also leverage more front organizations to engage in what is effectively treason. Thank you.